Attendance is on. So, guys, in the coming weekend, Saturday or Sunday, I have not yet decided when, I will actually hold a makeup exam for students who were not able to submit their forms during midsem, or those who have scored less than 25 marks in the midsem exam. The idea is that you can actually get some marks. So it will actually be only a 25 mark exam. So at max you can get 25 marks. It will be significantly harder as compared to the uh, you know as compared to the midsem exam that you guys have taken up. So it's just basically the idea here is to simply give you some kind of opportunity to pass the course. Okay, so it is not something for everyone. If in fact if you've scored more than 25, it doesn't make sense at all, because this 25 is the maximum that you can get, and it will count uh, as your midsem marks, right? So uh, the best you can do is 25 out of 50. So this is just for those guys who are currently getting a zero, or who've got scores like 4, 5, 10, or something like that. For those students, they get a second chance actually. Anyone who's above 25, it doesn't make any sense. So I have not yet decided the exact date and time, but it should be somewhere in the next weekend. So this is a specifically for those guys who uh, Pranav, you can actually appear in the paper if you want. I mean, if you want, you can take up the exam. It's just that just send me an email saying that I'm taking it for practice. Um, because there are some students who want to take the test as well as a practice for NSEM. So yeah, uh, uh, you are free to take up the test as well. It's just that please send me an email so that I don't. I mean, see your marks, if they are better than if your midsem marks were better than this mark, then anyhow this won't be counted. But it will actually reduce my own bookkeeping tension. Bookkeeping tension. I'd say, right? So it will reduce my job a little bit. So, if you want to take up the exam, you are free to do that. But just tell me that I'm taking it only for practice, so that I can concentrate on the marks of the other students who are getting a zero, or who've got a very low mark count in the midsem exam. So it will be somewhere in the next weekend. As the weekend approaches, I will tell you the exact date and time. Another announcement is that I've already told you about a friend of mine who would like to give you a lecture um, on compilers in general, basically the whole compilation process. In fact, after the lecture that we had, I've shared already, that will be the last lecture of our course, which we will discuss tomorrow. It will be a nice continuation where he picks it up from there, and he'll try to talk to you guys about it. So, Dr. Avnish Pandey will be taking a lecture. As of now, I have put the slot as 6 p.m. on Sunday. I hope it is fine. And as I said, this is a voluntary thing. You're not you don't have to do this. You don't have to come to the lecture. It's up to you. In fact, I'll probably just circulate a sheet so that I have a good head count of the number of people who are planning to come. If the number is less than 100, I can simply host it on Google Meet. I don't want to actually do it on WebEx. So if the final head count will be less than 100, I will have it on Google Meet itself. Anyhow, so these are the two announcements. And now let's talk about today's lecture. Yes, Naveed. The second lecture that I uploaded this week, that is the last lecture of ITP, and the next whole week is basically revision. Okay, and yeah, one more thing. So I have to go to my home institute in Kanpur on Monday, so I will not be able to take up a lecture then. So what we'll do is I had planned to keep 3 lectures for revision. So we'll start revision from Wednesday itself, and we'll take up the next Tuesday and the next Wednesday as revision lectures. So we'll get 3 lectures for revision. But yeah, as far as the syllabus is concerned, have I covered too little or too much? I don't know. My friends to whom I shared the syllabus, they told me that you're covering far too much. Um, but whatever it is, we are basically done with the syllabus now. The lecture tomorrow will probably be the last lecture. Yeah, this is the general feedback I got from my friends also, that it is a bit too much. Um, but yes, there is at least one lab that I want to take, and this one will be that 3 hour lab with demo. Okay, so you guys have to decide upon it. If I'm not wrong, we have decided some Friday night slot. So maybe this Friday night or Saturday night. Let us. In fact, I'll have to actually include the TAs also in that discussion. So maybe one day I'll have that 10 p.m. meeting again that we used to have, right? So in the 10 p.m. meeting, we should decide upon one slot, and that will be kind of your lab exam. Okay, so that will be done. We'll just maybe keep it slightly higher as compared to other labs. So if other labs are, let us say, okay, I told you about n minus 3, na? So how many labs we have had? Uh, I'll check. So basically, we'll keep the lab exam to be slightly higher in the weightage. Maybe 25% or 30%, and then the rest 70% or 75% we'll have that n minus 3 thing. Okay. I think we have already done 4 labs or so, right? So I can now afford to give you marks on that n minus 3 basis. 4 or 5 labs, whatever it is. I'll count the bash lab as well. So if you've done well in the bash lab as well, you'll get good marks. It's like this. If you have done poorly, it's fine. But if you have done well in the bash lab, you'll get advantage from there as well. So basically, the idea is that we have to somehow come up with a scoring mechanism so that I can give you a grade. So so yeah, maybe one lab exam will be fine. We'll keep it at 25-30% of the weightage. And I'll tell you guys about it beforehand so that everyone has to appear in that exam. Um, uh, okay. We can also have this lab exam. Um, we Topics, I think now we have reached that level that now the whole syllabus is your labs. syllabus. Okay, whatever we have seen, not this lab, not this week. The bitwise operators and preprocessor directives. If we are excluding that, everything will be a syllabus part in the syllabus. Okay, and um, guys, I'm also open to this. Because this is what we used to happen we used to do when we were in BTech, that our practicals used to be after the theory exam. So if you guys can somehow check up your schedule, and if you can tell me that there is a particular day, we'll have to decide it beforehand, by the way. If there is a particular day after your theory exams, we can have this 3-hour lab then also, because then we can have it in the daytime. We don't have to rely on the night. But that will be between me and you guys, right? I mean, the institute will not come in between. But if you want to give your lab exam, then um, we can have it after your theory exam as well. um, yeah, this week's topics are part of the syllabus for the theory exam. Okay, but not for the practical, the lab exam. Uh, okay, so guys, please figure out. Have Do you guys know the? Let me just check up the academic calendar. Is it there on the site? Like hmm, ac.in. So when are your uh yeah I mean, and some theory exam, right? Yeah, yes, that will be the complete. Okay, just a minute. The NSEM will be the complete syllabus, everything. The format will be exactly the same as it was for midsem. There is no other way to conduct it. Okay, induction. Last day of teaching is March 12th, and end semester exam starts on March 15 to 20. So guys, let us plan it on 21. Would you be fine if we take the lab exam after the theory exam, let us say on March 22? Um,
So
it
we
will be
could do
much.
a Sunday before.
Okay, it's up to you guys. See, I have no issues. We can do it after your theory exams as well. It will probably take off the pressure from your head, because you guys are so busy. I know, from Monday to Saturday. I have no issues with taking it after the theory exams. It's just that before I prepare the grade, I need that exam, because um, what is that offline lab exam? It will be on this only. What is it? Hacker Earth only, Abhinay. So it will probably be easier for you guys, right? I'll just put a question there for 3 hours, and just do the question. And it's just that this time, after the 3 hours are over, the TAs will ask you some questions. Uh, okay. No, I can see. Frankly, I would be very happy to meet you guys in person. I don't know whether it will be possible or not. Um, uh, because Nishchal, I need at least one more marks. Okay, we can either go through with the same way, that Friday night exam with some demo. That I have no issue. Um, that is actually not. So is this about the previous Thursday, Shore? The one that where you submitted it on Google Classroom? So that is going to be counted as a lab. The you know the Thursday that just went away.
So no, sir,
That
I was asking about the lab in which we had to solve both questions for ITP,
that is
for IT as well as CSS.
yeah. So that is basically an assignment that will count towards your theory grade. Okay. So in fact, for theory, this is what I am currently thinking about. 10, 20, 30, 40 should be the weightage. 40% marks for endsem, 30% marks for midsem, 20% marks. This will be class participation. So in class participation, there will be things like quizzes, attendance, shepherding. Okay. Overall, if you have interacted with me, over emails or something like that. Not now, okay? Now that I have told you, don't start spamming me with emails just for the sake of it. But yeah, I over a period of the whole semester, I have seen how many people have have actively discussed stuff with me. So maybe basically 20% I will constitute marks out of all those interactions that we've had. Okay, I still don't know what is going to be the micro level weightage, but basically 20% marks um, for class participation. You know how active you were with the class, and 10% will be for that assignment, the one that you submitted on Google Classroom. So that will constitute 10% mark in your theory evaluation. Okay, so um, yeah, so that seems to be the thing. So 50 questions for 60 minutes, that was good enough, right, for midsem. So I think we can just have a similar thing. It's just that this time the syllabus will be the complete syllabus instead of just those 4 or 5 weeks. This time you will get questions from the complete syllabus. So see, I anyhow give you guys 5 minutes in 10 minutes extra. Um, so that is not an issue. I usually extend the deadline towards the end by 5 minutes anyhow. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll probably give you the questions 5 minutes early. Okay, so it will be a 65-minute paper for 50 questions. Okay. That will be it. And please be absolutely sure that you submit your form this time, because we won't have any time for makeup exams now. Okay, so be absolutely sure that you submit the questions, the form, whatever number of questions you have, and I will allow you to resubmit the form. I don't think any other faculty member does that, but I am doing that because um, I want you guys to submit. Okay, so uh, oh yeah, just that much. So let us start with the shepherding part.
Excuse me, sir.
Um, yeah, see, ask your other faculty members. They actually forced me. Do you know that the previous course that I offered, that was basically just the half of a course. I was forced to give 35 questions in 30 minutes. Okay, this was what the institute was expecting me. 35 questions in 30 minutes. This time I have already made a concession. I have like brought it down to 50 in 60 minutes. So yeah, the institute expects me to have to do something when it comes to grading and exams. Believe me, I'm already stretching it to the maximum level, to which I can take a leeway from the institute. So I don't think I can I can go beyond that. So uh, yeah, so basically these are the announcements. We'll talk about it maybe on Wednesday, okay, when we have done the syllabus, when we have completed the syllabus. Okay, so let's start, guys. Shepherds for today. Okay, I got it. I got it. See, I saw that there were very few views on YouTube. So then at 11 p.m. in the night, I decided to make shepherding more credit worthy this week, and see what has happened. So yeah, sorry guys, I'll start from I will start from the top and pick five. Okay, Pranav, Nischal, Sahil, Divya, Rama, Kiran. Okay, so in such a contentious case, I can only pick I can apply the first come first serve kind of thing. There is a girl in the other batch. She emailed me in the night itself that I want to be a shepherd. This was the kind of this is what happens when you get marks to do something. Anyhow, so let me just scroll up. There are so many. Pranav, Nishchal, Sahil, Divya, Rama. Okay, so these are the five. Pranav, Nishchal, Sahil, Divya, Rama. Okay, I'm not. I have. There are so many scrolls at the bottom. Um, uh, yeah, I know Pranav has been a shepherd a number of times, but see, when I don't have any other way to pick up, right? The I don't want to, see, first come first serve is probably the most rational thing that human beings uh, have ever discovered, right? First come first serve. It's as simple as that. I have no say. It's on your luck. So. So please now, whomsoever I have named, I'll just open up my shepherding sheet. Abhinay, you'll probably get marks anyhow. The class participation marks. This is going to be in the class participation thing. So if you have interacted with me over email, you'll probably get marks from that side. So overall, I'm going to give 20% marks for class interaction and participation. And so overall, you should get. Ah, yes, Rohit has made a good point. So Rohit, you are shepherd tomorrow. Um, yeah, so Rohit he's the smart guy among you guys. Nehal is for tomorrow. Sudeep for tomorrow and Jay for tomorrow. Avinav, Avinay, okay, chalo, Avinay is for tomorrow. Fine, fine, fine. Let's stop then. Okay. So please, whomsoever I have agreed upon, please remind me tomorrow or send me an email today, because otherwise I will forget. I have a very poor memory. Uh, 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 does it count as in? I don't know what do you mean. Let me first type the names of our shepherds for today. Yeah, guys, the five guys I have talked about. Please tell me your name and roll number.
Pranav Gade AI 10.
10. Okay. P. Yeah. Next.
Divya
Then
Rai,
Nishchal.
Sorry. Whom? Just one person at a time. Whose name is alphabetically, before? Please say in that order.
so
Ramkiran
Divya,
LCS.
Yeah, Divya. Okay, I heard Divya first. Divya, your uh, roll number and
so roll number 25, LCM, AI 25.
AI 25. And now Rama, you can say
LCI 6.
6. Okay, two more. Who
Sahil
was there? Sahil,
Sahil
just a
Rathi
minute.
CS10 CS18.
18 and one more.
Sir, 13, sir.
13.
LCS 13, sir.
CS. Okay,
Yes.
13. Got it. Okay, just a minute. Let me change the color for this day. Yeah. So my sheet, so that I remember, I have asked you guys. I have made it more credit worthy. Okay. Uh, see, it's like this. I mean, guys, sometimes I play a trick with you guys. I mean, it's not going to make a difference of a lot. Whomsoever is shepherd today. Sometimes I have to play tricks with you guys so that you guys study. So yesterday I saw no one was having a look at the lecture, so I thought, okay, let's roll the dice in a different fashion. So anyhow, I mean, they will get some extra credit, but not so much that you actually start worrying. Okay, it's not going to make a huge difference. Okay, some extra credit for them. Like I have already promised some guy, right? On one day I had a single shepherd, so I've told that person you are going to get more credit for that. So that on that day as well, that person will get some more credits. Basically, what I'll do is I'll give you guys some grades for class participation. Something like A, B, C, D, and so this way, and don't worry, D means it's not failed, right? So probably D means that out of 20% you'll only get 10 marks. So 10 will probably be the baseline. Everyone will get 10 marks from me. But yeah, those who have done well, they deserve to get 20 or 18 or 17 like this. So that is going to be the difference. Okay. Even if you've never been a shepherd, you still get 10 marks. Okay, so something like that. So don't be worried. Don't be too much worried. Okay. Sure, it's fine. I mean, see, as a teacher, I still don't know what is the best way to teach, right? I'm still trying to figure out a way in which to engage you guys. So at the night, I just thought about this plan. Why not make shepherding more credit worthy for this week so that people study. So anyhow, so okay, so let's start, guys. Let me share the screen. Actually, these topics are also harder. Don't get me wrong. They are actually harder as compared to the topics that we have already seen. So maybe if you are shepherding in this, it is going to be a little harder. So that is why maybe a bit more credit. Okay, can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, sir.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then start.
So I would like to go with the first question. Logical operators, like they are basically to make a unanimous decision on multiple conditions. They work upon Boolean expressions like 1 and 0, and they return Boolean values like 1 and 0 again. And bitwise operators, they are used to make computation like you can they work pair bitwise. Like if there are two integers, they will be working bit by bit, parallelly they will be working bit by bit, and they work on integers and they return integers. It's not necessarily that they will be returning only 1 and 0. And for the logical operators, like if we take the example of and, if the first operand,
So
the
guys, yeah.
logical yes,
So guys, is it audible to everyone? I can hear Rama. Is it audible to others? Whatever Divya just said.
Yes, sir, it is audible.
Okay, so Rama, please. Okay, I'll just type it.
and the bitwise operators, like they are and, or, and not. So the and or bitwise operators, they work on more or two operands, and at a time they work on two. Similarly is the case with logical operators, like the and or operators, they work on more two or more operands, but at a time again they work on two operands, and while the not operator in both cases work on a single operand.
So, any doubts or no?
I guess I'll take the second question. What are the possible data types over which bitwise
Yeah,
operators can
Naveed,
be
please
applied?
have a look at your connection. I think we can hear. Maybe just rejoin probably. Yeah, any queries, guys? So you guys get the overall idea that basically the major difference between logical operators and bitwise operators is that the bitwise operator, as their name suggests, it basically does the same operation but bit by bit, okay? And not at the value level. That is the only difference, and that is why the result is basically another integer, which is which is computed after applying these operations at the bit level. Whereas in case of logical operators, you just get a 1 or a 0 based on whatever that logical operation is. Okay, but here you can get any integer, any random integer. Okay, any queries?
Yeah, so for the second question, the possible data types over which bitwise operators can be applied are like short, long, int, and char. It basically works on integer values, so it will work with these data types. It can't work with double values. That's why it only works with these 4 data types.
Why it not work on decimal numbers?
Okay, so I'll take this question. If you guys remember the email I had sent about IEEE 754, so like the representation of doubles and floats is not the same as you would expect. So basically, it is not a good practice to use bitwise operators because the results will be unexpected and it may lead to uh, implementation specific behavior. For example, if some architecture does not implement IEEE 764 but something else for storing floating point, then your results will vary as well. So if you have to do it on like floats or doubles, there are some pointer tricks to convert a float into an int, then you can use, but it's way out of syllabus and it's not recommended at all.
Yeah, so the simple answer is we had this lecture, right, where we talked about representation of data in terms of bits and bytes. So if you go back to that lecture, you'll see something known as sign magnitude form. There were two other terms which we did not discuss: one's complement, two's complement. You will study all these things in your computer organization course. I think it is in the next semester, right? I mean, I have not seen your curriculum, but I think it will be in the second or third semester. I mean, it has to be like this, otherwise, you guys will. I mean, if the curriculum is designed in such a way, it will be interesting for you guys to study computer architecture, computer organization. Am I audible, guys?
Yes, so you're audible.
Yes, sir.
So, guys, I think this might be a WebEx problem. WebEx might be having some some weird issues again. Just try to unjoin and join again. That is the only thing I can tell you. So the reason we don't do it on decimal numbers, the numbers with decimal points, is because there is a specific way in which they are stored. Okay, so essentially the power, the exponent is stored somewhere else, and the actual number is, we call it mantissa, that is stored somewhere else. Somewhere else, as in there is a format in which it is stored. They are stored separately, and when you do these bitwise operations, the bitwise operators do not care. Okay, they don't care whether it is mantissa, whether it is exponent, whether it is sign. It simply does whatever it is supposed to do. So the result you will get might be extremely, unintuitive. It's very difficult to understand what that result will be. And of course, the other problem is platform dependence, that the C standard doesn't really specify too much about how the data should be represented at the platform level. So different platforms are kind of free to innovate in that direction. So it is possible that you get extremely unexpected results for the same code if you run it from two different if you run it on two different platforms. With integers, it is kind of standardized. It is not absolutely standardized, but yeah, in most cases you will be able to predict that this will be the output. But with numbers with decimal points, it becomes very difficult to even imagine what is going to happen. Okay, so that is why we usually use these things with integers, and that too we try to do it with unsigned integers only, that is positive integers, rather than including the signed integers, because then the interpretation becomes a problem. Okay.
Sir, by platform, like normal ID or the
No, no,
compiler?
the underlying platform, your compiler, your operating system.
Okay,
Those things matter.
okay, sir. I may take the third question. Like, why
Sahil
is
has a
it
question.
okay?
Short and int together. Uh,
Yes, sir. I was using that. I defined a short type variable and int type variable, and then I used and bitwise operator, and it works. Why?
Yeah, so because that is actually a general C language paradigm, that if you use two operands with a single operator, usually C has a way to actually um, C has a way to promote the data type with smaller range to a data type with a bigger range. So there are some rules. I think I shared an appendix number for it. So in your textbook, uh, not the textbook. Oh, sorry, guys, I have made a mistake. I just realized in the Okay, I'll just make the change in the slides. But by the way, in your reference book, the reference book on C programming by Cunningham and Ritchie, there is a particular appendix where it has written, how exactly the conversions occur. So if you use a short and an int in an expression, what really happens? So usually the short will be promoted to become an int. That is the idea. So, and that is by adding, zeros to the left. Okay. So yeah, implicit typecasting. So there are some rules for it, guys. And so usually when you use a short and an int, not just with the bitwise operator, with any operator, even with a plus or asterisk operator, the short will be upgraded to become an integer before the operation takes place. Okay.
Okay, so the third question is, why is it a bad idea to use negative numbers and bitwise operators with bitwise operators? So we all know that the negative and positive are defined by the first bit in the representation in bitwise format. So when we use bitwise operators, some operators like left shift or right shift, or some operators which are like not and end, they may change values of the first bit, and the negative may become positive and the results may be unexpected. And also it is that even if we use positive number, we should be careful, because as we saw in the left bit, like left shift and right shift, when I will give you an example. When we do left shift, like suppose there is a 1 in the leftmost bit and you do a left shift, uh, by the like simple meaning it should become twice. But if there is 1 in the leftmost bit, uh, and the second leftmost bit, it may be a negative and with a very huge value. But when we shift it, when we do one left shift, it may still be negative, but the value may decrease, like may increase in negative format by a huge number, because the uh, value at the one at the second leftmost bit will carry a like if it's a 16 bit format, the value will carry a 2 to the power 15, and the value may decrease or increase as per the sign. Any doubts?
But this is only case of when signed int use, na? Agar if we use unsigned int, then there have no problem.
No, if it is unsigned, then there may be the same problem, because like if it is unsigned and it doesn't depend, like the leftmost bit is 1 or 0 for the sign of the integer. Suppose it is 1 and the uh, upcoming bits are all zeros. So a 1 at the leftmost bit means that it's a huge integer,
Yeah.
and
So
when
let
we
me
do a left shift, it will
Yeah.
decrease
So
the
basically,
value.
guys, there are two problems. One is the inversion of sign. That happens if you're using an assigned integer. If you are using a signed integer, there is a chance that the sign becomes flipped. If the last bit was 1, the second last bit was 0, or the last bit was 0 and the second last bit was 1, and if you shift it to the left, there will be a sign inversion. That is if you are treating it as a signed integer. If you're treating it as an unsigned integer and the last bit is 1, when I say last, I mean the leftmost. The leftmost bit is 1 and the second to leftmost bit is 0. What actually happens is overflow. So overflow as in, um, it is a huge integer, as Sahil just said, right? Because if there is a 1 on the leftmost bit, it is actually a huge integer. And when you multiply it by 2, whatever you require in order to store that integer cannot be stored in those many number of bytes, and there's many number of bits. Okay, so basically the leftmost one now kind of gets lost, and this is exactly the same as you guys might have remembered that used to happen if you take up a very long, a very large integer, and then you try to add another large integer to it. It will again become negative, right? So there is an overflow. So the same kind of problem is here, that if there is a 1 on an unsigned integer, the leftmost bit of an unsigned integer is 1, and you shift it by uh, and you left shift it, basically that 1 gets lost as in there is an overflow. The actual number that it represents is basically 2 into the current number, but that number is too big to be represented in those many number of bits. Does that make sense? Basically, now you need n plus 1 bits in order to store this number. So this is an overflow. Okay, so that is the idea, that even with positive integers, even with unsigned integers, there is always a risk of overflow. Okay, so then the actual number you are expecting will not be the number that you see. That is the idea. Is it
So
clear,
may
guys?
I explain it again, like with one example?
Yeah, go ahead.
So like if we like know how we represent an integer in a bitwise format, if we go from right to left, it is the number if it is if 2 to like if 2 to the power 0 is present, we write 1. If it is not present, we write 0. And it same goes on, it goes on for all the powers of 2, like 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 2, till the leftmost bit. If it's a like 16 bit, then it will be 2 to the power 15 at the leftmost bit. So consider a number which has uh, one bit, like which has 1 in the 2 to the power 15 place. So it will be 2 to the power 15 plus, and like zeros in all the other places, and maybe 1 at the rightmost place, or maybe 0 also. Then it will be 2 to the power the value of that integer will be 2 to the power 15. If we do a if we do a left shift, according to what sir explained in the video, it must be multiplied by 2. But when we do a left shift, because of the overflow, because the leftmost bit has been lost, the value straight goes down by 2 to the power 15, if it makes sense.
Uh, Yeah, so basically the idea, guys, is as simple as this. If you have k bits and you have a k bit integer, when you shift it by when you left shift it by 1, uh, the number, let us say the number was currently n, it becomes 2n. Okay, so now you are representing 2n in the same number of bits, k bits. But at one point of time, when n is actually extremely large, when you try to store 2n in k bits, that will not be possible, because its representation requires more than k bits. It is similar to saying, how can you represent 8 in 4 bits? You cannot represent 8 in 4 bits, right? Because, sorry, 2 bits. You can represent 8 in 4 bits. So you cannot represent 8 in 2 bits, because in 2 bits the maximum you can represent is 0, 1, 2, and that's it. Zero and what, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, right? So you can represent up to 3. So that is the issue, that you can only represent numbers up to 3. So the same problem is there. Even if the things are unsigned, you're not using 1 bit for storing the sign. Even then, when you keep on left shifting stuff, at some point of time the number is actually so big that when you left shift it again, it is now too large to be stored in those many number of bits. So there is a case of overflow. That is the problem. Okay, so let's hope it is clear, guys. It's like a clock with
Sir, the right shift will be a case of overflow and the left shift will be a case of underflow, no, sir?
no. Left shift will be overflow, right? Left shift is where you are multiplying the number. Overflow means that your number is too big to be stored in the number of
Okay.
bits you have, right? So overflow. Underflow, it doesn't actually happen here. Underflow is basically okay. You can probably think about underflow in case of if it is, let us say, a negative number, a signed integer, then you multiply the signed integer by 2, then it becomes an even more negative signed integer. But then at some point of time, it will be too large a signed integer to be stored. So underflow and overflow are that, right? I mean, overflow means trying to store something bigger than what can be stored in the number of bytes, or underflow means you're trying to something smaller than the range, right? That is the idea. Overflow and underflow, the concepts are exactly the same, that the number of bits are not enough. Underflow means usually when an underflow happens, the value becomes extremely positive, and when an overflow happens, the value becomes extremely negative. I mean, this is a general concept of overflow, underflow. So basically, you were expecting a large value, but it has become small. That is overflow. You were expecting a smaller value, but it has become large. That is kind of an underflow. Okay. So Jay has written something. In each segment. I'm still not getting it, Jay. So.
Sir, I think what Jay Mehta said is right. Because
Yeah,
when
let me
we
just.
want.
So is it like a clock as in a circular thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. It is exactly like that. It is like a circle. Okay, if you start from one point and you take 360 degrees, okay, it is the same as saying 0 degrees equivalent to 360 degrees, right? That is the same concept. Why is 0 and 360 the same? Because basically 360 means one complete rotation and coming back to the same point. So it is exactly the same. 0 and 360 degrees, that is the same concept. That 361 degrees is essentially equivalent to 1 degree in some ways. Okay, the same thing is here.
Yeah.
Any more queries, or shall we move over?
Sir, can you explain 1's complement and 2's complement?
Actually, Kirti, this is something that you guys will study in computer organization. But let me
So
see.
just basic idea.
So see, let us finish off the questions. We'll start the revision tomorrow. Okay? No, not tomorrow. Day after tomorrow. I will teach you guys what is 1's complement and 2's complement. It is just 5 minutes thing. But let us complete the syllabus first. I will teach you what is 1's and 2's complement.
Okay, thank you, sir.
This is for your future. I mean, you'll anyhow be taught all these things by your computer organization teacher. But it is nice to gather knowledge at whatever level of your life you can. So it will be nice. Yeah, guys, go ahead.
I'll take 4 if no one is. Yeah, I'll take 4th, I guess. So a left shift operation basically is equivalent to shifting all the bits to the left by 1. So if you guys remember the binary things, then this is basically equivalent to multiplying the number by 2, because left shifting increases, like, doubles each bit. So at the end of the day, doubling each bit is equivalent to doubling the entire number. And similarly, right shift is the inverse of this. It is halving each bit. So let's say you have the number 10, you right shift it, you will get 5, and if you left shift 10, you will get 20. Any questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
can we say it is similar to, suppose we were in a decimal number system, and we left shift that, then the entire number gets multiplied by 10, and when it's in binary, it is getting multiplied by 2.
Yeah. So no, the number is exactly the same whether it is in decimal or.
No, sir. I mean, if left shift by mean I just moving the face value to left to one place left, so the place value gets 10 times of each.
Oh yeah. Got it. Yeah, exactly the same.
Yes.
If you try to do, let us say, a left shift operation in decimal, that is exactly the same. That is equivalent to multiplying by 10, right? So here again, it is like multiplying by 2. Yeah, that is a very good analogy. Yeah, that is right.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, can you explain that integer division in right shift, which...
Pardon?
Sir, integer division, which you were telling in the lecture video, in the right shift, that integer division occurs.
Yeah. So because you can understand, right, why it is now that why is it that in the integer division it is basically a simple truncation, right? This might be something that you guys may have already uh, thought about, that why is it that when we do 3 by 2 it is not rounded but basically it becomes 1, the decimal part is truncated. So you can now understand probably why, right? That basically when you shift bits to the right, that bit simply gets ignored. Okay, so then whatever is left is only the actual decimal part, right? And this is what you can see in that example, that if you divide 6 by 2 it becomes 3. I think it was 6 only, right? In the lecture, in the example. So if you divide 6 by 2 it becomes 3, and if you divide 3 by 2 it basically becomes 1, right? Because 0 1 1, and when you shift it to the right it simply remains 0 1, right? So that is the whole concept of integer division. Integer division in computer science means that you are basically going to ignore the right bit, and you basically just keep on shifting it to the right. In fact, when you actually study computer organization, it is really it's really fun to study computer organization by the way. You'll actually get to study how actually division and multiplications take place at the hardware level. So they actually have algorithms to do division and multiplication with the help of these shifts as well as additions or subtractions. Okay, so the actual division and multiplication it happens with the help of addition, subtraction, and shifts. So there are algorithms to do that. Okay, so this is why a simple right shift just means an integer division. I'm sorry, was this your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Any other queries, guys? No queries? Do we have any question left now?
No, sir, I'm done.
So if we don't have any questions left, we have 8 minutes. I can explain one's complement and two's complement to you guys. But first let us see if you guys have any queries.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so in the homework part that you gave, there was a question about using the XOR. Sir, I did not get that question.
About what?
So using the XOR operator.
Sorry, is it about the slides? I mean, your voice is breaking up.
No, sir, it was in the homework.
Acha, just let me just open up the slides. Where is it? Assorted topics, part 1. Let me open the homework once again. What was that in the homework?
So
Yeah.
there's
So, oh yeah, I gave you guys a link to Geeks for Geeks, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. So what was the question?
So in that link, there is a question about using the XOR operator, where we have to find how many times which number is coming odd times.
Let me just open that link first. Yeah. Now, what is the question? The C program to demonstrate use of bitwise operators. Is this the program that you're talking about?
So the XOR operator.
So I've opened up that. Shall I open a specific program here or what?
So I can send it in the chat.
You can send it over email. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Any other queries related to bitwise operators? If we have time, I can probably tell you guys about one's complement and two's complement. No? So, okay. So let me just take a quick tutorial, I would say, on one's complement and two's complement. It's very simple. Let me open up some Google image. Okay, let me share my screen as well. complement. Two's complement. Let me just share my screen. Tab. One's complement and two's complement. Can you guys see this screen of mine? So I'm just trying to find a nice picture. What can I check? Okay, let me use this one. You guys can see this image and my mouse pointer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So let us say I have some number which is currently represented in binary form. So how would it look like? It would look something like this, right? It's something like this. How many are this? 8, right? 1 1 0. Yeah. So let us say I have an 8-bit integer. It looks something like this. A ones complement is basically nothing more than taking a logical not a bitwise not over this number. Okay, a bitwise not, what will it do? It will simply flip all the bits. So 0 will become 1, 1 will 0 0 like this basically. So essentially everything gets flipped. 1 1 0 becomes 0 0 1. 0 0 0 will become 1 1 1 and 1 0. So this is also known as ones complement of a number. Okay, so whatever this number is in decimal system, you'll have to calculate what it is. The ones complement of that number is basically this number. Okay, again, as of now we are not thinking about the sign. This is basically unsigned integer. Okay, so this was the bit pattern, and if you flip the bit pattern, a new bit pattern comes up, and this bit pattern is the ones complement of this bit pattern. 2's complement is basically 1's complement plus 1. Okay, so if I want to find the 2's complement of this number, what I have to do is I have to take the 1's complement first. So this is 1's complement, and then add 1 to it like this. Okay, so basically this is the number and I am adding 1 to it. So this is the new number. Okay, and this is known as the 2's complement of this number. So is this part clear? 1's complement is simply flipping the bits, and 2's complement is 1's complement plus 1. Is it clear up to here? What is a 2's complement and what is a 1's complement? I'll tell you why we need 2's complement, but is this part clear? What the actual operation, that this is just a number, you flip the bits, it becomes 1's complement, and you add 1 to it, it becomes 2's complement. Is this part clear, guys? So then if this is clear, then I'll tell you what is the need of 2's complement. Then I'll tell you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let us try to understand why we need something like 2's complement. Now let us say I want to store a signed number, not an unsigned number, but a signed number. So we had seen that there is one way to represent a signed integer. What I do is, if let us say I want to represent a signed integer in 8 bits, I say the leftmost bit is going to be a sign bit. Sign bit as in, if this bit is 1, it means that this number is negative, and if this bit is 0, it means the number is positive. Okay, so remember, we are just trying to come up with a convention, and this convention is if the LSB, the left side, the most significant bit on the left side is actually 1, you are simply saying that it is negative, and if it is 0, you say it is positive. Now the actual number gets represented only in 7 bits, right? So I mean the magnitude of the number is being represented in 7 bits only. So if you take up the example of char, for example, or let us say a one, so essentially char is like a 1 byte integer. I think I responded to someone on email as well, that a char is basically a 1 byte integer. You can treat it like a 1 byte integer, an 8-bit integer. So what will be the range of this integer? I can only represent 0 0 0 0 0 0 to like 2 to the power 7. In 2 to the power 7 I'll have on all the ones. 2 to the power 7 is what? 128. Sorry, yeah, 2 to the power 7 is 128. So basically it's like 1 less than 2 to the power 7, because that will be 127. 2 to the power 7 will actually be 1 followed by 7 zeros. So yeah, so basically what I am representing here is something like this. My range becomes 0, and then the maximum that can come here is 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. So that is plus 127. And then on the negative side, basically it is like this, minus 128 to plus 127 can be represented in a signed magnitude form like this. Okay. There is a catch here. I'll tell you what the catch is. What happens if there are all zeros here and there is a 1, and then there are all zeros here and there is a 0? The problem is, it actually means minus 0 and plus 0. Why? Because the last bit can be 0 or 1 and everything else can be 0, right? Do you understand the problem? In the sign magnitude representation, I have two representations for 0, right? Why? Because the leftmost bit can be plus 1 or can be 1 or 0, and the rest of the bits can be all zeros. Can you guys understand that the problem with a sign magnitude representation? So here all I'm doing is I'm reserving the leftmost bit to store a sign, plus or minus, and I have a convention. Plus means 0 and minus means 1, and then the rest of it basically represents my number. Okay, so I mean this is the issue. I can actually only store minus 120, what is 0 0 0 0 to 1 1 1 1. So actually it becomes minus 127 to plus 127 only, because I have two representations for 0. Sorry, I know it might be confusing, but are you getting closer? Let me use a text editor. That will probably be easier. Where is Genie? Stop this and I'll switch to my text editor. Share. Stop sharing. Application window Genie. Okay, so let us try to do this in 4 bits only. It is easier to imagine in 4 bits. So I have 4 bits with me. Now I say that the first bit can either be 0, 0 implies positive number, and if it is 1, it implies this number is negative. Okay, now what is left? I have 3 bits left. Okay, so the first one is basically sign. Let us represent it by s. So s can either be 0 or 1, and now I am left with 3 bits. Okay, and what can be the values for xxx? It could be anything between 0 0 0 to 1 1 1. So what is 0 0 0 in binary? It is 0 only. And what is 1 1 1 in binary? That is 7, right? So basically I can represent 0 to 7. Okay, and now if we go back to this complete number, what can I represent? If sign is so if sign bit is 0, and it could be what, 0 0 0 to 1 1 1. So I can represent what, plus 0 to plus 7. Similarly, if the sign bit is 1, again I can represent 0 0 0 to 1 1 1. I can represent minus 0 to minus 7. Is this part clear to everyone? If anyone has any questions with this, please ask me now. That I have basically saved 1 bit for sign, and then the rest is going to capture the magnitude of the number. So what numbers can I represent in this combination? Basically minus 7 to plus 7. But the problem is I have two representations for 0, minus 0 and plus 0. Do you understand the problem with this sign magnitude form? This is the issue. So the solution to this is basically storing numbers in 2's complement format. Why? Let us check now. So what exactly happens in 2's complement form is so If you take 2's complement of 0, what will it be? Let us try to understand. I have 4 bits. What is the 1's complement of 0 in 4 bits? 0, 0, 0, 0 becomes 1, 1, 1, 1. So this is 1's complement. And now if I take 2's complement of 0, what will it happen? So I will add plus 1 to it, plus 1, and what will happen? The output will be this. 1 plus 1 is 1 0, basically 2, right? So this bit becomes 0. Then 1 carry. Another 1 plus 1 is another 0. Sorry. Another carry. Another 1 plus 1 is 0. So another carry. And another 1 plus 1 is 0. So another carry, and there is an overflow. Right? But because what happens, I am going to simply ignore that one. So it looks like the 2's complement representation of all zeros is also all zeros. Is it making sense? So this is why when we want to store negative numbers, we use 2's complement representation, because in 2's complement representation, 0, it, whether you, even if you try to find the, so this is the convention. If a number is negative, we store it in its 2's complement format, and the 2's complement format of 0 will always be the same all zeros. So you don't need to have, so one bit pattern is not wasted. That is the only idea. Now I will stop here. The rest you will learn in computer organization. So this is the idea, that if you use 2's complement representation, you only have one bit pattern to represent 0, instead of a simple sign magnitude form where you get two representations for 0. Okay? Yes.
सर इन स्लाइड्स में आपने क्या ना 6 to -7 कन्वर्सन किया है
हाँ,
इन
तो वो
16
इसलिए,
बिट सिस्टम।
हाँ, वो इसलिए, जैसे अब वो 6 है आपका, मान लीजिए। अभी हम थोड़ा देर के लिए इसको मान लेते हैं कि 8 बिट का नंबर है। तो 8 बिट में 6 कैसे लिखा जाएगा? ऐसे लिखा जाएगा, ठीक है? और मैंने कहा कि अब हम मान रहे हैं कि ये इसमें ये साइंड इंटीजर है। साइंड इंटीजर का मतलब क्या है? कि इसमें नेगेटिव नंबर्स भी आ सकते हैं। तो अब मैं इस नंबर का 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालता हूँ। 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालूँगा तो क्या आएगा? पहले तो 1's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालना पड़ेगा। क्या आया? 1's कॉम्प्लीमेंट, और फिर मैंने इसमें 1 ऐड कर दिया। ठीक है? तो 1 ऐड किया तो आपका आंसर क्या आएगा? ऐसे निकालना पड़ेगा। 0, ये 0 आ गया और ये 1 आ गया। यहाँ पर आपका 0 रहेगा। ये रेस्ट आपका एक्चुअली वही रहेगा, 1 1 1 1। राइट? हाँ, सो बेसिकली अब होता क्या है कि ये इस पर्टिकुलर नंबर का 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेशन है 6 का। बाय द वे, हमने पहले उसमें क्या किया था? आई थिंक हमने पहले उसपे नॉट लगाया था, राइट? 6 के ऊपर। तो हमने गलती ये कर दी कि हमें इसका पहले नॉट ले लेना चाहिए था। तो इसका नॉट आएगा ये हमने 6 के ऊपर नॉट गेट लगाया था, राइट? नॉट ऑपरेटर लगाया था, तो आपकी बिट पैटर्न जो है वो अब ये बन गई। अब हमें इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन करना है। एक्चुअली बात ये है कि इसको 2 तरीके से इंटरप्रेट किया जा सकता है। अगर हम मान के चलें कि हमारी लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट जो है वो साइन रिप्रेजेंट नहीं कर रही है, तो फिर जब आप इसको रीड करने की कोशिश करोगे, तो वो एक बहुत बड़ा इंटीजर नंबर बन के आता है, 65,000 समथिंग 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 समथिंग। लेकिन होता क्या है, 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट फॉर्मेट में हमको अगर समझना है कि ये नंबर क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है, तो हम ये चेक करते हैं कि उसकी लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट 0 है या 1 है। अगर उसकी लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट जो है वो 1 है, इसका मतलब ये एक नेगेटिव नंबर है, और अगर लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट 0 है, इसका मतलब ये एक पॉजिटिव नंबर है। अब इस नेगेटिव नंबर को अगर हमें डेसिमल में कन्वर्ट करना है, तो हम करते क्या है कि इस नंबर का 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालते हैं। तो इस पर्टिकुलर नंबर का 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट क्या आएगा? 1 1 0, और फिर हम इसमें एक 1 ऐड कर देंगे, तो ये आ जाएगा आपका और अब ये नंबर जो भी रिप्रेजेंट करता है डेसिमल में, उसके आगे हम माइनस साइन लगा देंगे। तो अब डेसिमल में ये नंबर क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है, 0111 इज 7। तो हम कहते क्या है कि 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट लगा के इसके आगे माइनस लगा देंगे, तो ये आ जाएगा -7। एक्चुअली मुझे नीचे लिखना चाहिए। अब क्लियर है आपको
सर
कीर्ति?
इसमें हमने 2 बार मतलब नॉट ऑपरेटर यूज किया।
हाँ, नहीं, हमने 2 बार नॉट ऑपरेटर यूज नहीं किया है, हमने नॉट ऑपरेटर एक ही बार यूज किया है, और हमारा जो फाइनल बिट पैटर्न स्टोर्ड है मेमोरी में, वो ये है। ठीक है, इसको इंटरप्रेट करना है कि ये क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है। ठीक है, तो इसको 2 तरह से इंटरप्रेट कर सकते हैं। एक इंटरप्रिटेशन ये है कि ये जो लेफ्ट वाली बिट है, ये कोई साइन बिट नहीं है, ये भी आपका नंबर का हिस्सा है। ठीक है, तो अगर आप उसको उस तरीके से इंटरप्रेट करोगे, तो हम बोलते हैं ये नंबर अनसाइंड है, अनसाइंड इंटीजर है। तो अनसाइंड इंटीजर के हिसाब से वो आपका जो नंबर आएगा वो 65,000 कुछ आएगा, बहुत बड़ा नंबर आएगा। अगर हम कहते हैं कि ये साइन, इसमें साइन बिट भी इंक्लूडेड है, यानी कि ये वाली बिट आपकी साइन बिट है, ठीक है, तो फिर हम बोलते हैं कि साइन बिट, अगर एक नंबर को हम साइन बिट मान रहे हैं, तो फिर जो कन्वेंशन है उसको इंटरप्रेट करने का, वो ये कहता है जो लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट है, अगर वो 0 है, तब तो जो कुछ भी लिखा हुआ है वो एग्जैक्टली वही नंबर है जो आपको दिख रहा है, यानी कि भले ये नंबर साइंड इंटीजर हो या अनसाइंड इंटीजर हो, अगर लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट 0 है, तो मतलब ये 6 रिप्रेजेंट करता है। अगर हम साइंड इंटीजर मान रहे हैं, तो लेफ्ट मोस्ट बिट 1 है या 0, इससे उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन चेंज हो जाएगा। अगर 1 है, तो इसको इंटरप्रेट करने का तरीका क्या है, इस पूरे के पूरे बिट पैटर्न का 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालिए, जो भी नंबर आए उसको एक एक डेसिमल नंबर की तरह से इंटरप्रेट करिए, मगर उसके आगे माइनस लगा दीजिए। तो अभी हमने किया
ओके
क्या, ठीक है ना, तो हमको इसको
यस
इंटरप्रेट करना है, तो इसको इंटरप्रेट करने का तरीका क्या है, इसका 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालिए, जो भी नंबर आता है उसके आगे माइनस लगा दीजिए। ये तरीका है
ओके
इंटरप्रेट,
ओके
ठीक है ना, तो इसलिए
हाँ
हमने ये
यस
मैंने आपको, हाँ, स्टोर्ड आपके मेमोरी में यही है, उससे ज्यादा कुछ स्टोर्ड नहीं है, लेकिन उसको इंटरप्रेट करने के लिए हमें उसका फिर से 2's कॉम्प्लीमेंट निकालना पड़ेगा और उसके आगे माइनस लगाना पड़ेगा। ये सब कुछ आप लोग कंप्यूटर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में पढ़ोगे, डोंट वरी। ठीक है, मैं बस आप लोग ने कहा था इसलिए मैं आपको बता रहा था। ठीक, ओके,
थैंक यू सर।
हाँ, okay guys, sorry I have taken more time. Let's stop. Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow. Okay, bye guys.